On the evening of November 28, two Russian-owned oil tankers were attacked by Ukrainian drones in the Black Sea near Turkey. The first, the Kairos, which was flying the Gambian flag, exploded violently, creating a massive fireball. About 30 minutes later, the Virat, located 35 nautical miles away, was struck on its starboard side, creating a hole and filling the engine room with smoke. Kairos and Virat. A video showed the 150,000-ton Kairos being struck in the midsection by a drone. The explosion sent a fireball into the sky, with smoke visible on satellite images. Reports from Chinese media say the Kairos was carrying 25 crew members. After the explosion, they jumped into lifeboats, escaping from the burning deck. A Chinese member using the pseudonym Zhang Hai recalled feeling a strong shake on the deck of the Kairos. The firelight from the engine room lit up the night sky, and the thick smoke, accompanied by a strong smell, rushed towards him. The Turkish Coast Guard quickly began rescue operations after receiving reports of the explosion. Some crew members were burned by sparks as they escaped, crawling across the tilted deck to avoid burning debris and leaking fuel. Within 12 minutes, all 25 crew members, including 19 Chinese nationals, were rescued. In online comments, many Chinese internet users expressed a disdain for Russia's oil trade. Who would dare go to Russia for oil now? They were serving the aggressors and got what they deserved. Some money is too dirty to earn. Although they didn't directly fight, transporting oil makes them accomplices. Others praised Ukraine's restraint. They only attacked the oil tankers, avoiding casualties, a kind strike. The Virat tanker suffered a similar fate. A video showed the ship catching fire after being hit by a Ukrainian drone near Turkey's Black Sea coast. All 20 crew members aboard the Virat were rescued, with no casualties. Both tankers have complicated sanction and ownership backgrounds. The Kairos is a 274-meter Suez-class tanker built in 2002, previously sanctioned for transporting crude oil between Russia and India. The EU added it to their sanctions list in May 2025 when it was known as the Kachuska. The UK followed with sanctions in July 2025. According to the Kairos website, the ship was sold in August 2025 to Alafia Trading, and its flag was originally Gambian but is now listed as unknown. The Virat is a 250-meter tanker built in 2018. It was sold to Glory Shipping in January 2025 and had spent most of its time docked in the Western Black Sea. The ship has been sanctioned by the US, EU, UK, Switzerland, and Canada. The Shadow Fleet refers to a network of ships Russia created to bypass Western sanctions, flagged under third countries with owners hidden behind offshore companies. These vessels are used to secretly transport Russian oil to countries like China and India. These ships do not rely on formal insurance and avoid European and American ports, using stealth tactics to evade sanctions, but they could not escape Ukraine's targeting. The main tool in this attack was a Ukrainian-developed maritime drone. With its small and agile frame, the drone can travel hundreds of kilometers. Carrying explosives, it can strike low-speed, low-altitude targets like oil tankers, making it a serious threat to Russia's supply lines. Russia's so-called tight defense system proved ineffective in real combat. Ukrainian drones have forced the Shadow Fleet tankers to scatter, stop, or reroute, resulting in no tankers available for oil exports from Russia's main ports. This marks the first significant blow to Russia's Shadow Fleet, and its operational space is shrinking at an unprecedented rate. Ukrainian military precision strikes against transport vessels, ports, and transfer hubs are effectively tightening the financial noose around Putin, undermining Russia's oil-for-war strategy. The Russian Ministry of Defense later acknowledged the failure of the defense system, and the radar station commander has been suspected for investigation. The economic loss is escalating. According to Chinese media reports, the two tankers, with a combined weight of 265,000 tons, were carrying oil worth over $70 million per shipment. The structural damage from the attacks rendered them non-operational, leading to a 30% reduction in Russian oil transport in the Black Sea. Daily export volume from Novorossiysk port dropped from 1.2 million barrels to 850,000 barrels. This was no isolated incident. It's the latest in a series of planned strikes by Ukraine's navy and security forces. On November 30, the Russian-linked oil tanker Merson suddenly began listing and sank off the coast of Senegal. The Senegalese Maritime Department reported that the ship, which was transporting Russian oil, split apart and sank within 2 hours. The cause of the sinking is suspected to be an underwater explosion that caused flooding in the engine room. The entire crew evacuated. The Merson had been involved in transporting Russian refined products to Africa and South America and had been anchored near Dhaka since late September. The last AIS signal from the ship was recorded on November 23. Images shared online show the ship's stern almost submerged. Following this, concern spread throughout the international shipping community. The Ship Owners Association held an emergency meeting. Insurance companies recalculated premiums and charter contracts began including war risk clauses. About half of the ships in Russia's shadow fleet are foreign flagged and leased by Russia. If these leases are cancelled, the ships will no longer be part of Russia's oil transport network. Russian economists suggest that this could be one of the most significant consequences of Ukraine's naval actions. Meanwhile, Ukraine has been using long-range aerial drones to target Russian refineries far behind the front lines. On November 14, Ukrainian drones, along with Neptune missiles, attacked Russia's largest oil transshipment port in the Black Sea, Novorossiysk. Oil tanks at the Sheskary pier exploded and burned throughout the night. Ukraine has shifted from direct assaults to using low-cost, high-volume drone swarms to exploit gaps in Russia's defenses. This swarm tactic is depleting Russia's expensive air defense missiles, delivering significant military gains. Since Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, the activity of the Shadow Fleet has surged. According to EU data, there are between 600 and 1,000 ships in this fleet, transporting about 40% of Russia's military funding through oil exports. Reports suggest that 40% of the ships in the Shadow Fleet are managed by countries like China, India, and the UAE, although the term effective control is vague as most ships are leased or mortgaged. Chinese ship owners have provided over $750 million in mortgage loans to support the fleet's expansion. Kyiv has urged Western nations to take action against the Shadow Fleet, stating that it helps Russian oil reach global markets, funding Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine. In response, Europe has moved to fully ban the Shadow Fleet's operation in the Baltic Sea. The US has also signaled that it will implement stricter sanctions and expand accountability for companies assisting in transporting Russian oil. Besides Ukraine, the European Union has also launched a crackdown on shadow oil tankers. On October 1, 2025, French special forces intercepted the oil tanker Borakai off the western coast of France. The soldiers boarded the ship, detained the Chinese captain and first officer, drawing global attention. This action is part of a broader Western effort to target the Shadow Fleet. French prosecutors said the Chinese captain did not cooperate with the investigation. He was charged with disobeying naval orders and failing to prove the ship's nationality. He was arrested on October 2, 2025 and will face trial in France in February 2026, potentially facing a fine of up to 150,000 euros. The first officer was released on October 3 with no further charges. French authorities emphasized that the ship's unclear nationality could not solely be blamed on the captain. The Borakai was built in 2007, is 244 meters long, and has a deadweight of about 106,000 tons. It has been renamed at least 4 times in the past 16 months, a tactic used to hide the real owner and avoid detection. The final owner is unknown, and the ship is officially registered in barge shipping in Seychelles. The EU and the UK added it to their sanctions list in February 2025. The ship's operator changed in June 2025, but the details are currently unknown. It was previously managed by Hongzhou Ship Management in China. Russia responded coolly, claiming to have no knowledge of the Borakai, denying any involvement in oil sales and implying no connection to the Shadow Fleet. This incident occurred in international waters, with France claiming the ship was part of the Russia's Shadow Fleet, used to smuggle oil for Moscow. The captain refused to disclose any information, leading to heightened tensions. The Chinese captain became a key figure in this international controversy, and Beijing may intervene through diplomatic channels. The safety of Chinese nationals has emerged as an issue. On September 20, the oil tanker Borakai loaded 100,000 tons of Euro crude oil at Russia's Prismok port, a large shipment since the average oil cargo per ship listed by the EU is usually less. The tanker was headed to Vardhana port in India, targeting the Asian market. This incident has spurred a new round of European efforts to protect energy security. Following these actions, French President Macron has pushed for strategic adjustments to block funding for Russia's shadow fleet. The shadow fleet is poorly regulated, with unclear ownership and identity, leading to increased maritime risks. European nations are responding by strengthening controls and legislation to address these issues, reflecting a global effort to combat illegal maritime activities. Under the framework of the International Maritime Organization, Europe is advancing measures like the EU Maritime Security Initiative. In addition to oil transportation, European governments are focusing on another security concern. Intelligence agencies have warned that Russia may adapt this model to turn the shadow fleet into a platform for launching maritime drones to target European ports, energy facilities, and airports with covert attacks. Ukraine's recent actions have significant implications. First, they have changed the logic of warfare. In the past, sanctions used economic pressure and financial freezes to restrict opponents. However, Russia bypassed these sanctions using the shadow fleet to continue oil exports, earn foreign currency, and sustain its war effort. The drone attacks have made these hidden routes less secure. Second, this has disrupted the global energy market. The disruption of Russia's oil transport chain has led to a sharp reduction in exports, soaring insurance costs, and ship owners' reluctance to engage in Russian oil transport. Even if Russia offers discounts, it will be difficult to find buyers for its oil. Third, this has dealt a significant blow to Russia's war economy. Oil revenue is crucial for Russia's war effort. The destruction of tankers and export facilities has hurt both Russia's finances and supply chains. Cutting off energy exports through transport is more damaging and harder to fix than traditional airstrikes on infrastructure. Russia created this maritime network to evade sanctions and ensure steady oil revenue. However, with tankers catching fire, insurance companies withdrawing, and sanctions tightening, the system that once supported Russian oil exports is now unraveling under continued pressure. Since Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, China has become Russia's largest oil buyer. According to China's General Administration of Customs, China imported about 302 million tons of crude oil from Russia. In 2024, China imported 108 million tons of Russian oil, worth 444 billion yuan, making up 19.3% of China's total oil imports. This means 1 in 5 barrels of oil China imports comes from Russia. According to data from the first 3 quarters of 2025, China imported 74.1 million tons of oil from Russia, maintaining its position as the largest supplier of oil to China. Ukraine's strikes on Russia's shadow fleet have direct effects on China, impacting not only distant maritime operations, but also triggering a chain reaction that affects China's economy and foreign diplomacy. First, China's energy security now faces new uncertainties. Over the past 3 years, large amounts of Russian oil bypassed sanctions through the shadow fleet, transported via the Black Sea, Mediterranean, and even the Indian Ocean, entering China's market. These attacks have significantly reduced the security of these routes, increasing transportation risks and causing insurance companies to withdraw and ship owners to hesitate. This may disrupt China's access to Russian oil. Even if Russia offers lower prices, Chinese companies will face higher risks and costs, which will directly affect the stability of China's energy imports. Second, China's overseas interests are affected. The Kairos tanker involved in the attack carried 25 Chinese crew members who have evacuated after the explosion. As attacks on the shadow fleet increase, Chinese crew members and companies may face higher risks. This situation is not only an economic concern, but also a diplomatic and security issue for China. Third, this challenges China's strategic choices. China has been promoting the internationalization of the yuan and cross-border digital yuan payments to reduce dependence on the US dollar system. In 2024, trade between China and Russia reached $245 billion, with over 90% settled in yuan or rubles. The collapse of Russia's shadow fleet not only makes it harder to obtain energy through great channels, but also stagnates or even reverses the progress of yuan internationalization. Fourth, China's role in the international financial and trade system is also impacted. Disruptions to Russia's oil exports will further raise global energy prices, particularly transportation and insurance costs, affecting the global market. As a manufacturing powerhouse, China will face higher energy costs, which will reduce export competitiveness and increase pressure on Chinese businesses. At the same time, China may face stricter secondary sanctions from the West. If China continues importing Russian oil, it could be seen as supporting Russia's war economy. If it reduces imports, it will face an energy gap and increased economic costs. This dilemma highlights China's awkward position within the global sanctions system.